Welcome to the Newsmakers Podcast. I'm Billy Hollowell, and this is a show where we go behind the headlines every day to bring you an interview with a pastor, entertainer, politician, or other notable news figure. And this is a show, again, it's daily, but it's based on our weekly TV show, which is also called Newsmakers. You can watch it on the CBN News channel and also on our YouTube page. And on this show, every day, we dive deep. It's a little more longer form with one of the people who you will often see on our Newsmakers show or across the CBN News platforms. On today's Newsmakers, a documentary filmmaker is on a mission to explore the authenticity of ancient Bible prophecies. Tim Mahoney's new film, Patterns of Evidence, The Israel Dilemma, Ancient Prophecies, hits theaters November 13th, 14th, and 17th. He joins us today to talk all about that film and the events unfolding in the Middle East. With no further ado, here is Tim Mahoney. Well, we are here today to talk about your new film, Patterns of Evidence, The Israel Dilemma, Ancient Prophecies. The title alone is fascinating to me. Why this film right now?
Well, this film began in 2007. I went to Israel, and it was a surprise for me to go there because I was working on the Israelites leaving Egypt. So what does Israel have to do with that? Well, they were leaving Egypt so they could head to the promised land. And so when we look at what happened last October with the attack in Israel, and then shockingly what happened with the campuses around the United States with the anti-Semitism, I realized that a lot of people don't have any understanding of biblical prophecy. And what do I know about it? But I do know that the land of Israel was promised to Abraham's descendants, and so that's what this film is about. Is what are these ancient prophecies, and how should we understand them?
Yeah, as you were looking at that, because there are people today, and I encounter them even within the Christian realm, who will say, oh, Israel today has nothing to do with those ancient prophecies. Israel today is not connected to that. And I find that to be personally remarkable as a claim in light of all of the events that we've seen happen surrounding Israel itself today and the history. What did you discover as you were diving into those interviews that you did for this film, as you were diving into scripture? What sort of was new to you maybe, or was really elevated as you were doing that research?
Well, what I do know is that in 1948, when Ben-Gurion stood in front of everyone, talking about this, they believed that the Bible was their deed to the land. And when I met with Benjamin Netanyahu in 2007, he said the same thing. He says, this is our land. This is what God promised to us. So this film is a two-part investigation. This first part investigates, and by the way, the pattern that I'm looking for is a five-part pattern. As anyone knows how we make these films, we say, what does the Bible say about these events? Can we find evidence for that? And what we see is that the Bible tells us that there was a covenant, a legal agreement that was made between Abraham and God, and that it extended to his descendants. And then at Mount Sinai, this agreement was reestablished, and again with Joshua, when the Israelites were going into the promised land. And so I wanted to investigate, is there evidence that God acts in history? And if so, how would we look for that? And what Moses tells us, and he wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, which is known as the Torah to the Jewish people, he wrote that in the future, that these people would have a kingdom. So I'm looking for the kingdom. And secondly, he says that if you have this kingdom, by the way, you need to obey God. And that's part of the prerequisite. You've got to obey God. He says, if you obey God, there's blessings. And if you disobey God, there's curses. And he says, the Lord revealed to Moses that sadly that these people, it's a warning. He says, you will disobey God. And if you disobey God, your kingdom will be destroyed. So that's the second thing we're looking for. He says, and your people will be scattered. And not only that, they'll be persecuted. So these things are what we're looking for. And then it says, but God will be merciful to a small group of you, and you will return to the land. So we're looking for those 5 events. And this is I believe, a law. It's a legal understanding and agreement. And this has happened twice in the history of the world. And that's what this investigation is looking at.
When you finish the investigation, we don't want to give it all away because we want people to go and see the film. How did it get you thinking differently? I mean, you've been making film after film, compelling, fascinating documentaries about the Bible that really do get people to look at the evidence. What did the evidence do for your faith? How did it change your faith as you were navigating through and working on this, particularly in the area of prophecy?
What I want people to realize is that there are words that have been written down in the past, and as time has gone on, these events that were foretold are happening. And what I want people to see is that God is true to His word, and these prophecies that were given. We go to the Isaiah scroll and we look at that and we talk about this. And Isaiah tells us that God is going to. I mean, the Spirit of God speaks through Isaiah, and he writes, he says, God is going to tell you what He's going to do, and then He's going to do it. And then He's going to say, can any other God do this? In other words, prophecy is a way that we see that God is showing us that He's outside of time and space. Why I think this film is so significant right now is it's going to be showing people that God has said certain things and He's fulfilled them. He's true to His word. And you're going to see, never before has this ever been done. I don't believe in the history of the world have we ever shown a context from Genesis all the way through to through Noah's Ark and the Tower of Babel, and we're going to take you right to Abraham and his descendants, and all the way through to the first temple and the kingdom of David, and then we're going to take you to the destruction of this, and then the return to the land with Ezra and Nehemiah. This is a big undertaking, an amazing film. You're going to see an amazing, what do we say, patterns of evidence of this happening.
When you look at the events of today, in particular the last year and a month, right? You're going back to the attack. You mentioned October 7th that horrified the world. And you look at all the different things happening in the Middle East. And this is where I even return to what I was saying about it shocks me when people will say, well, Israel today has nothing to do with prophecy. I mean, the entire eyes of the world are on Israel, are they not? I mean, all of these countries in the Middle East, wanting Israel off the map, talking about it openly, Iran, the behavior they have. When you look at what's currently happening, how much of these current events, and I know this is tricky sometimes because it's moving so fast, are related in your view, and how much of this do you show in the film to those ancient prophecies?
Well, in this investigation, when we were started to work on it, Billy, what happens is you're like, wow, as we're trying to be, give the context, and we're trying to basically show what the evidences are. We actually had to limit some of the evidence because there's so much of it. But we start with the attack that happened. We actually started in 1948, and you're going to see. I didn't realize how many attacks there were all the way through: attack, peace, attack, peace, attack, peace, attack, peace, attack, peace, and this isn't going away. So, in order to understand, well, where did these people come from? This first film, Ancient Prophecies, we're going to lead you to understanding the basis of where this came. And the question is this a supernatural battle that is actually going on? And that's the question. And then, so this first part of the investigation coming out November 13th, 14th, and 17th, that's this Wednesday and Thursday, it's coming out. This first part of the investigation is going to establish this legal agreement. And that's what the Jewish people believe is their right to the land. This is where God then, we have the temple in Jerusalem. Why is it that Jerusalem is this battleground? Well, if you don't understand the context of it, you're not going to really know how to think about it. And so the question you're asking is there any connection to today? I believe absolutely there is. And if you are ignorant of it, then you're not going to understand what's going on.
Well, where can people go if they want to grab tickets? You mentioned this starts Wednesday. It is coming up here very quickly. Where can they go to grab tickets, get more information on the film?
Well, the easiest is to go to patternsofevidence.com. Patternsofevidence.com, you'll see a link there for the Israel Dilemma, and they can go to get their tickets there. And I think you have another hot link that would be in the, and that's right to the ticket site right there. But those are two different ways for people to be able to see this or film. And not only that, but group sales. Bring your Bible study, bring your Sunday school class or your family. And one reason why we put these in theaters is because it's a public place. And it's an important place that you could bring friends or family that might not go with you to a church or to a Bible study, but they'll go with you to a movie.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time. As always, appreciate it.
Yes. Should we show a trailer?
Yep. I'm going to do a call out right now to that. And I love that you brought that up. So everybody who's watching right now, you can check out the trailer right now for Patterns of Evidence, the Israel Dilemma, Ancient Prophecies.
But your name shall be Abraham.
I also antagonized a lot of people by recognizing the state of Israel as soon as it was formed.
Where is your title to the land? He said, he held up the Bible. He said, here's the title. You don't lose your right to your home because somebody kicked you out.
The Torah came before the land. It's not by accident.
Patterns of Evidence Foundation presents
The covenants are what holds the storyline together.
a film that asks if God made a covenant with the children of Israel.
God's covenants are everlasting. There will be other things disappearing from the natural cosmos before I break my covenant. I will never break my covenant.
The God of Israel cares about all human beings, and therefore in the caring for Israel, he's expressing his love and concern for all humanity.
What evidence remains today?
Well, David is part of the history of early Israel, which has been maligned for some time because there was not solid archaeological evidence. That's all changed in the last decade.
Debate rages over the truth of biblical prophecy.
So they collect all these traditions, stories, myths, theological stories, and so on. We are dealing with the traditions.
The scriptures predict events hundreds, sometimes thousands of years off into the future, and they do so with a reliability that is breathtaking.
What will the pattern reveal?
If they break the covenant, there are consequences.
That's right. Before you get out of the Pentateuch, the whole basic plot line is there.
Patterns of Evidence, the Israel Dilemma.
That's all for today's Newsmakers podcast. Be sure to tune in for the next episode of the show, and also head over to the CBN News YouTube channel and the CBN News channel to watch Newsmakers every week. We'll see you soon.